So welcome everyone, as today we get to finally finish, after our long journey, we finally get to finish the Amida. So we are all following along for those who have in our blue annotated siddur. Sorry, I'm just gonna let a couple more people in. And we are up to page 53. So last week, we spoke about the fact that these were the concluding blessings. These were the blessings that we take leave taking of saying goodbye. And one of the things that we say is we remember all the sacrifices that happened in the temple. Then we go on to modim, which is acknowledgement. It is a thank you. It's also acknowledging that Hashem's reality is really the true reality. And now we come to the prayer for peace. Sim Shalom is on the top of page 53. So because last week we spoke about the fact that the Birchat Kohanim was put in usually during the temple service at the end of the sacrifices. In Israel, they still say Birchat Kohanim every day. We only do Birchat Kohanim during holidays, but we have a semblance of it when the Chazan repeats the Amida. But this Sim Shalom is actually in some form a continuation of the Birchat Kohanim. So even though the Birchat Kohanim, the blessings of the Kohanim was taken out of the regular prayer, the blessing of peace, which is really acceptance of these blessings, have remained in. We see that when we look at the words of Sim Shalom, and I'm going to read it together now. Sim Shalom, bestow peace, goodness, and blessing, life, graciousness, kindness, and mercy upon us, upon all your people Israel. Bless us, our Father, all of us as one, with the light of your countenance. For by the light of your countenance, you gave us, Lord our God, the Torah of life and loving kindness, righteousness, blessing, mercy, life, and peace. May it be favorable in your eyes to bless your people Israel at all times and at every moment with your peace. So, such beautiful vernacular, such beautiful wording. The first 6 words, Sim Shalom Tov, Shalom Tova Uvracha, Chaim, Chen, B'Chesed, all of these blessings that we want for God to give us, peace and goodness and blessing and life and graciousness and kindness, these actually correspond to the 6 phrases that were just said by the Kohanim of all the things, Yivarechacha Hashem v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Hashem panav elecha v'yichuneka, Yisa Hashem panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. So it actually corresponds, the 6 blessings that the priests have given us, we are now accepting. You can say, Hashem, please bestow this upon us. And how do we get blessings in our life? What is the conduit? What is the vessel to get our blessing? It is to have peace. Now, we know this because even when you want to have something, you have to make a vessel. You have to make if you want to gather something, you're going shopping at the grocery store and you want to gather a lot of stuff, you need a cart. You need a cup to hold your coffee. You need a keli, you need a vessel in order to receive. And what is the acronym of a keli, a vessel? Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael. Keli, Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael. So if we, all types of Jews, from the Kohanim, the Leviim, and the Yisraelim, if we are connected, if we are as one, that is how we get peace. Now, there's different forms of peace. We know that true peace can only come from Hashem, because peace is not an absence of war. We see that very clearly. We say, oh, right now I'm living in Canada and we have peace. But we know that at any moment, there could be something that comes up. There could be strife. We see even the war that's happening in the Ukraine, or all the difficulties that are going on in Israel, all the hundreds of wars that unfortunately are going on in this world, that peace is not something that we necessarily worldwide can bring upon ourselves. It is really Hashem who grants us this peace. And that is talking about the peace when Mashiach comes, because only Hashem can reconcile opposites. Peace is about reconciling opposites. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we come to the Oseh Shalom, the quintessential blessing for peace, talks about how God reconciles opposites. So it is Hashem who's able to grant us peace. And that is one of the pieces that we're asking for, the ultimate peace. But I think it's so important that if we say that we need a takeaway, that every one of these blessings in the Amida, if we're saying them, then we have to make it purposeful and meaningful in our lives. So on one hand, we say, yes, God, I really want the ultimate peace. I want Mashiach to come. But how do we make it meaningful for this moment? How do we bring peace into our lives? And there are so many different ways. And I thought of, instead of going, I thought maybe, because we sometimes have that 12-step program, we have 12 beautiful ways to bring peace, to bring shalom in our lives. First of all, I want to say that shalom is also a name of Hashem. So when we bring peace into our lives, we're really bringing God into our lives. And that's such a beautiful concept to think about. So the first thing we have to do is we have to try to have inner peace. Be true to yourselves. Trust your own inner values. We know that the Torah is our direction. It is our lifeline. We can get so distracted today. I go on social media, and then I said, my kids have, shown me what TikTok is, and I scroll and I say, oh my goodness, it's unbelievable what is out there. But we know that we have to have an inner peace, which is we have an inner core value that we hold true. Having that inner core value is one way of bringing peace into our lives. Another way is a little bit of a disconnect to make sure that you aren't too caught up with all the distractions. Of course, we have to live in this world, but to not be too distracted by everything that is going on out there with all of that social media is another way, whether we're looking at somebody else's pictures or Facebook page or what they're doing, or how come they have this, or how come they have that, is another way to bring peace into our lives. Another way, that's inner peace. Another way is to practice outer peace. And the way we do that is through meditation and through prayer. And for all of us who are going on this journey together, learning about prayer, it just means that even if we can't, and I've said this many times, but it's worth repeating, even if we can't say the whole tefillah and be, mindful every moment, if we take one prayer and we bring that into our lives and we have one meditative thought a day, and then we carry that through our day, that is a beautiful way to bring peace into our life. The other way is not just to bring peace in, it's what we radiate out. It said that Aaron was Ohev Shalom v'Rodev Shalom. He loved peace and he pursued peace. And why? Because he was always kind and smiling and happy. And sometimes it's not easy, but to put on this outer appearance of happiness when we could have things that are really bothering us. But to radiate peace means that you're also bringing it in. It goes back to what we spoke about last week about the Birchat Kohanim. It says that you will be blessed. It's not only talking about we get the blessings, but the Kohanim who bless us, they get blessings. So when you give, you automatically receive. And when you go about with a happy countenance, with a beautiful disposition, even if you're not feeling that way, you will receive so much in return, and certainly you will receive that peace. Another way to have peace is respect of our environment. The Torah is so forward thinking. Of course, it encapsulates everything, but we think that environmentalism and caring about our planet and caring about the earth is something that is, newfound thinking, but it's really not. We have laws in the Torah about Bal Tashfis, not to be wasteful, to be kind to animals, to be respectful of our environment. This is another way to bring peace. Of course, interpersonal peace within our family. It's all very nice to be kind and nice to the person that your coworker or the person that you meet on a not regular basis, but how much effort do we put in to bring peace and harmony into the relationships that we have on a regular basis into our family relationships. Surround yourself with positive people. Don't only be a positive person, but try to surround yourself with positive people, which means that if you find somebody that's very negative, try to take a little step back. We don't need to surround ourselves with negativity. We have to be the light and hopefully infuse the light to others. Give in for the sake of peace. This is a hard one. Give in for the sake of peace. Sometimes it's really challenging to say, I'm right, you're right, right? But sometimes when we give in, when it's not so important, and for shalom, for peace, we've gained so much more than we've given away. Another one, don't bite off more than you can chew. We're all trying to achieve so much, but take what we can do. As long as we're growing, as long as we're doing, that is amazing. And I love this one. Don't try to control the outcome. For me personally, a very A-type personality with, all my English and Swiss heritage, I try to okay, I've got to control this. And we can't control the outcome of so many things in our life. But what we can think about is allowing Hashem to be in control. If we think of God as our GPS, we can't necessarily navigate all the calibrations, but what we can do is we can accept when, rerouting, redirecting, we can accept it, and we can, our response to when our GPS takes us in this way and then it takes us in that way, our response to the final outcome is what we really have control over. And finally, just take a deep breath. Sometimes we want to be reactionary. We want to this is, and then it's just taking that deep breath, which is what tefillah is all about. So I believe that this prayer of shalom is so important. And perhaps that is why it is the culminating prayer. It is the prayer that sums up the whole of the Amidah, because in order to accept all these brachot, we have to have peace amongst each other and certainly peace within ourselves. And that's a real avoda. We've said that word many times. Avoda means work. Prayer is work of self-refinement, just being mindful to be peaceful with who we are, where we are, what we are, and try to give that out to everyone around us. We will receive Hashem's blessing for peace. So this is actually the culminating prayer of the Amidah. But as you notice, the Amidah doesn't end there. Now we say so then it finishes off with a blessing. Baruch atah Hashem hamavarach et Amo Yisrael b'shalom. Blessed are you, Hashem, who blesses the Jewish people with peace. And then we have, that is where the tefillah is ending. But then we have, just like in the beginning of the Amidah, we said, Hashem, open up my lips, and we'll see that all the way back on page, I'm going to quickly find it here. Just on page 45, when we started the Silent Amidah, we say, my Lord, open my lips and my mouth shall declare your praise. Now we have a closing statement. And what is that closing statement? May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you, Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. So when we start our prayers, we say, Hashem, I need you to help me with this. I need you to put the right words in my mouth. Sometimes when my husband has to do a speech, especially when he has to give a eulogy or something that's going to be accepted by people, I always say, Hashem should put the right words in your mouth, right? You want God to help you be able to express what you want. But now the closing statement has to come from me. Now, may the words from my mouth be accepted. In other words, now moving forward, everything has to come from us. So when there's the repetition of the Amidah, the Chazan will say this quietly, this verse, Yehi Ratzon Lefanecha, and then the Amida ends for him, because this is the end of the formal Amida. But there is some additional verses that are said, which I'm going to talk about now, which are really, really, really beautiful and meaningful. So at the end of page 53, you say, okay, if this is the end of the Amida, what is this extra paragraph doing here? So this extra paragraph was actually, there was many sages who composed prayers. And this one particular prayer was so popular and so meaningful. And maybe, and I was thinking about it, maybe because, okay, I've finished all of this meditation, I've asked for what I needed, I feel so grounded. And now what is my, what is my statement going forward? What do I really want? So what is my marching order, so to speak? So this prayer was so accepted and spoken about and recited by everybody that it became part of our liturgy. And it is, so it's not a formal part of the Shemona Esrei, but it is certainly part of the Amida. So we don't start walking around and talking, we are still remaining with our feet together, standing and talking to Hashem. And what is this meditation? It is so beautiful. Let's read it inside. My God, guard my tongue from evil and my lips from speaking deceitfully. Let my soul be silent to those who curse me. Let my soul be as dust to all. Open my heart to your Torah and let my soul eagerly pursue your commandments. As for all those who plot evil against me, hasten to annul their counsel and frustrate their design. Let them be a shaft before the wind. Let the angel of the Lord thrust them away. That your beloved one may be delivered, help with your right hand and answer me. Do it for the sake of your name, do it for the sake of your right hand, do it for the sake of your Torah, do it for the sake of your holiness. And then it repeats. People stop here and I will tell you why in a minute. And then it repeats the very last verse that we just said. Yehi Ratzon. Yehi Ratzon, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you, Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. So what are the main topics, the main themes of this one prayer? So obviously the first one is how we talk, how we express ourselves, how we go from here after this beautiful one-on-one with Hashem, how we articulate, how we give ourselves over. And the other two themes are about humility and about accepting the Torah as part of our lives. So the first thing that we have to understand is, how do we protect ourselves from being that person who's going to be talking and being, always having something negative to say and negative about people and negative about this one? How do we stop that? By being humble and by bringing Torah into our lives. So those are the three themes. So I just want to discuss a few things with you because I thought they were really interesting. It says here, it doesn't say that our enemy should be as dust, because it's talking about humility. It says, let my soul be silent to those who curse me. Let my soul be as dust to all. Why would you want your soul to be like dust? Like, well, that's a very funny analogy. Couldn't we think of something more uplifting? So there's two beautiful explanations that I learned, and I'd like to share them with you. The first thing is that we're talking about people who would be the ones who talk negatively about you, right? So we're not only talking about the way we have to express ourselves, which we'll go into some of the wonderful teachings about not talking badly about other people, but what happens if people talk badly about you? Then it says, let my soul be as dust. What is dust? Dust is something that people step on, but it outlives everything. And that is almost like an analogy of the Jewish people. How many times in our history have we been persecuted? Have we been marginalized? Have we been put upon and persecuted? And yet we are still here. We have outlived them all. So when somebody is being negative before you, it's not saying I should negate myself, I'm like nothing. It's saying that just like dust lasts and lasts and lasts, no matter how much it gets trodden on, that's what the Jewish people, that's what we can have, that sort of perseverance. Another interesting thing is the word afar, dust, has the same letters as the word pei resh ayin, which means peeling away, to reveal something that is covered. How do we bring out our innermost talents, our innermost abilities, is by being humble. A lot of people would think it would be the opposite, right? I have to, if I want to really show of myself, I have to be, all out there. Humility is like dust, is like that peeling away, not like dust. Humility is that word para, which means to peel away. So how does humility allow us to show our true ability? So I'm sure you've heard the famous story of Rebbe Zusha of Anapoli, who said, I'm not worried after 120 years that when I go up to God, he's going to say, Zusha, why weren't you like Moses? Why weren't you like Aaron? Why weren't you like, the Rebbe? He said, that's not what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that God's going to say, Zusha, why weren't you like Zusha? Zusha, why didn't you live up to your abilities? And that is what humility is. You see, Moshe was the most humble of everyone, but that didn't mean that he shied away from his responsibilities. It means that he just realized that all the blessings that he had and all his abilities came from Hashem, and that it served a purpose. So when we have true humility, that is when our abilities shine. Because we say, if I'm blessed with anything in my life, if I am blessed with money, if I am blessed with a nice personality, if I'm blessed with an ability to write, if I'm blessed with artistic talents, whatever we have in our lives, if we are blessed with it and we are truly humble, then we say we're given it for a purpose. So that's why it talks about humility here. But then it talks about Lashon Hara, and how powerful it is that as if we're going to take away something at the end of the Amidah, it's moving forward from here after we want all these blessings and we've asked for peace. One of the ways to have peace is to be so, so careful by the way we speak. The Medrash gives us a beautiful imagery. It says that Lashon Hara is like arrows that, are shot from a distance. So if somebody's right close to you, you can kind of navigate it. If you can't see where arrows are coming from, but they're coming from so far, and then it says, and when they land, they're like smoldering embers. What are smoldering embers? Smoldering embers are like little fires that look like they're out, but they're not really out, because they're smoldering. And even, when a day or two or three or four could go by and you think that there's no fire, but all you have to do is scratch the surface and you get this huge fire again. So this is what Lashon Hara does. Lashon Hara is something that when we talk negatively about people, that we don't even begin to understand the repercussions, that it might not happen right away. You might not have, created that fire and made something negative at that moment, but it could be like a smoldering ember that a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, that something can be sparked, and it could be not a good consequence. It says that the Jewish people in the time of old were given punishment for talking Lashon Hara, and that was sara'as, which we loosely translate as leprosy. But it's not leprosy. It was a physical manifestation of a spiritual ailment. And the only way that you could get out of this was to isolate. Now, we're not talking about isolating like we've had with COVID, where people think you're contagious, so you have to isolate. This was, you had to isolate even amongst other people who had sara'as, because it wasn't a contagious disease. So why did you have to isolate? Why did you have to stay outside and see nobody, not even any family members, not anybody else who had it? Well, it was because this was for the person to make a rectification of what he had done wrong. When we talk bad about other people, we are isolating them. We are making them different. We are pushing them away from people. So the punishment, or it wasn't really a punishment, and more like a consequence of speaking negatively, was that you had saras and you yourself had to be isolated. Now, there's so much about talking negatively and talking nicely, but there was one thing that I really wanted to leave you with. That I have a lot here, but I just wanted to leave you with this point because I thought it was so powerful. It says that lashon hara, talking negatively, is one of the most negative things one can do, because it actually kills 3 people. The person who speaks. Well, that's obvious why it would be damaging to them, because they're the one that's perpetuating this negative thing. The person who listens, okay, we also know, fine, you're a party to it, you're listening to all this gossip, fine. But then it says that it also kills or hurts the person who is spoken about. Why? Why would that person be included in all the negativity and the toxicity of lashon hara? And the reason for that is because when we speak, it actually has a force. It has a consequence. We are creating something positive or negative, depending on how we speak. So, and we see that with children, right? If you say to a little kid, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, guess what? That child will actually develop negative traits, bad traits. If you say you are amazing, you are fantastic, you are loving, you are kind, you are actually creating that with your words. So when we put out there something negative about another person, we are actually hurting that person in actuality. And then there was something else. A man once came to the previous Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, and he started to portray himself in a very negative way. He says, I've been so bad and I've done this and I've done that. And you know what the Rebbe answered him? Something so beautiful. He said, you cannot talk lashon hara about yourself. And I thought that that was so powerful. So many times we think that lashon hara is the way we portray other people, but it is also about the way we portray ourselves. We have to have positive self-talk. We have to talk about ourselves in a positive light. We cannot talk lashon hara about ourselves. We can't bring up all the negative traits that we think we have. We have to dig deep, find the beauty that is in each and every one of us. And that's the way we talk about ourselves. There's a story of a little girl who every time she said something wrong or did something wrong, her mom would take her to a fence and have her bang a nail in when she got really angry. So she would, bang the nail. And then when she would calm down, her mom said, okay, now that you're calm, I want you to pull out the nail. So every time she felt a little calm, she would pull out the nail and pull out the nail. You know what she saw? She saw that even when she pulled out that nail, even when she felt calm, she had left holes in that fence. That sometimes when we talk negatively about others, certainly when we talk negatively about ourselves, it has an effect. So as we're finishing our tefillah, and we're finishing this highest level of the Amidah, we said, God, we've asked you for everything. And now what are my marching orders? To realize that I could be humble and live up to my potential, to be very careful the way I talk about others, because that really actualizes their destiny. But my destiny is also in my hands. I have to be kind to myself. I have to talk nicely to myself and about myself. And then it's something interesting here, just a little custom that many of you might not know about. Right at the end of the page, you'll see right before it repeats the word Yehi L'Ratzon, it says that many people give a pause there, and to make it a private individual prayer, they will say a pasuk with the beginning and ending of their name, which means that, let's say my name is Esther. So my pasuk would start with the letter Aleph and end with the letter Resh. My middle name is Gitlin. So my pasuk starts with the letter Gimel and ends with the letter Lamed. And it actually says here that if you want to turn to page 582 a little bit later, and you can go through the verses and find the verse that is representative of your name. And that makes it a very, very private and personal prayer. So it's almost like our signature. So when I finish my prayer, I will say, that's Aleph and Resh, and then Galena Hashem Tzavos, Kadosh Yisrael. So that's Aleph, Resh, Gimel, and Lamed. And that's just a custom that many people have. And then we take our leave. And how do we take our leave? We take 3 steps backwards, starting with the left leg to show reluctance. And then we do Oseh Shalom Bimramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kal Yisrael, and then we stand up the Imramein. And this is the famous, and as we said before, the quintessential prayer for peace. He who makes peace in the heavens, may he make peace for us and all of Israel, and let us say Amen. And this is again harking back to what we said before, that God is the only one that can make peace. And he has in the heavens, believe it or not, very, very divergent elements. He has fire, he has water, he has the Malach Gavriel and the Malach Michael, he has the avenging angels, he has the healing angels, and it is only Hashem that can bring this ultimate peace. So we're asking Hashem to bring peace in the heavens and peace unto us, which is obviously talking about the universal peace that we can all help bring about with the coming of Mashiach. And then the final verse is again restating the fact that may be Hashem's will, Sheyibana Bet HaMikdash, that Hashem should rebuild the Bet HaMikdash, that we can have all the temple services that we used to have, we can have back again in its full form, and that tefillah will just be an addendum and a part of the service. It won't be in lieu of the service in the Bet HaMikdash. And this, my friends, ends the Amidah. So I know there's so much to unpack. Again, all you need to do is sometimes, when I go through the Amidah now, I sometimes maybe this one little thought, maybe that one little thought. It's very hard to be mindful the entire, time, but sometimes just a little mindfulness, a little thoughtfulness, and our whole day can be better. So as I said, this will be the ending of this series. And I will be, please God, continuing